imagine showing up to work, right? And your lunch budget for the day, like your actual food, depends entirely on whether your team sold enough blockchain server hardware that morning.
Yeah, which is a terrifying thought for most people.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
And if you didn't sell enough, well, you're paying out of pocket. But that is exactly what is happening inside a massive global tech enterprise right now. Welcome to this exploration into the source material, where today we are digging into an internal global market strategic brief.
Right, a very urgent brief dated August 17th.
Exactly. And it's for an organization operating within the CA and BOT chain ecosystem. The whole mission of our exploration today is to really dissect exactly how a sprawling global enterprise orchestrates a high-stakes product launch, while simultaneously coordinating human behavior across multiple continents.
Which is incredibly hard to do, by the way.
It is. And, if you're listening to this and you're prepping for a massive project of your own, this brief is honestly the perfect masterclass in goal-driven team execution and policy implementation. So, okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is that this document isn't just some casual quarterly update. I mean, it is entirely structured around a ticking clock.
Right, because they are on a major deadline.
Exactly. They have a hard deadline of August 21st, which is only 4 days away from the date of the brief. That is the exact moment they launched their new BOT computing power servers.
And it's also the exact moment a limited 20% pre-launch discount expires, right?
Yes. So it is an absolute sprint. It's a highly urgent situation.
Wow. Okay, so before we get into the gamified lunches and the ticking clock, let's ground this for the listener. Because a strict deadline requires massive underlying infrastructure to handle all that demand. What exactly is this tech ecosystem?
Well, the platform is pushing really hard on product iteration and public chain development. Think of the BOT chain as a specialized blockchain network, and CA as the sort of parent ecosystem powering it.
Right, and they're selling the servers that keep it all running.
Right, the computing power servers. And they are pushing this during what the brief calls a head mining window.
Which, if you're not super deep in crypto, basically means the very early days of a network where the financial rewards are highest just because fewer people are doing it.
Exactly. But here is the massive logistical challenge. If you are rolling out all this computing power, well, that power needs somewhere to go the second it goes live.
You can't just launch servers into a total void.
Precisely. So the brief highlights that they have already onboarded over 700 project partners.
700.
Yes, over 700. And following the server launch, they are queuing up an AI Launchpad, a mini Launchpad, and an RWA Launchpad.
RWA being real-world assets, right? Like tokenizing real estate or commodities.
Yes, exactly.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit. Onboarding 700 partners before the full server launch, isn't that a bit like building out all the stores in a shopping mall before the foundation is entirely poured? I mean, it feels like a really high-speed tech land grab.
Well, it might look that way from the outside, but it's actually incredibly strategic. In that head mining window we talked about, creating an immediate, robust ecosystem is essential.
So they need the utility there from day one.
Exactly. By having all those partners and launchpads queued up, they are creating immediate utility for the computing power they're selling. The buyers know exactly where their hardware is going to be utilized.
Ah,
Okay.
yeah. So bringing this back to you listening, when you are launching a project, are you just focused on launch day, or do you already have your own, quote-unquote, 700 partners and next 3 rollouts lined up?
It's a great question to ask yourself. You need the demand waiting.
Right. But, servers don't just sell themselves. To support a tech ecosystem of that scale, you need a perfectly synchronized global workforce.
You really do.
And shifting into how this organization manages its human capital across totally wildly different regions to hit that August 21st deadline, well, the brief outlines massive global expansion.
Yes, it mentions South Korea, Japan, and India.
Right. And it specifically says they are, quote, fully replicating the China morning meeting model, unquote. Meanwhile, Brazil and Europe are growing rapidly, too.
It's a massive footprint. And they are also flying 240 new V1 leaders from China straight to Hong Kong on August 26th and 27th for dedicated training.
Not to mention a V1 training program launching in Mauritius for the African market.
Exactly. And 2 major conferences in Europe in September that will link the European, African, and South American markets.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I am just marveling at the idea of taking a highly specific cultural corporate practice, like the China morning meeting model, and explicitly trying to replicate it in places like India, Japan, and South Korea.
It's definitely bold.
I mean, how realistic is it to just perfectly copy-paste a management culture across different borders? A sales op in Mumbai has totally different social dynamics than one in Seoul or Beijing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, rapid scaling absolutely demands standardization. You can't custom tailor the corporate culture for every single new country when you have a 4-day deadline.
So you just force the model everywhere.
Essentially, yes. They bypass cultural bottlenecks by standardizing the leadership. Those continuous V1 Hong Kong training rotations aren't just about teaching basic sales techniques.
Like they're installing an operating system.
Exactly. The brief specifically says it's about strengthening global core talent development and market replication capabilities. They rely on uniform leadership, these V1 leaders, to act as the connective tissue between all these continents.
Okay, that makes sense. You program the leaders, and the leaders enforce the culture. But standardized global training only works if the financial incentives on the ground are perfectly aligned, right?
Oh, 100%. And this is where the policy updates in the brief get hyper-specific.
Yes, let's talk about the ground game, the daily actions that actually motivate these participants. Because the brief outlines these key policy updates, and mining machine performance is now officially included in CA reward calculations for offline events.
Right, so things like investment briefings, trainer seminars, leadership boot camps.
Exactly. This performance counts toward team upgrades, effective event performance, and crucially meal allowance support calculations.
Yes, the meal allowances.
And the call to action demands that teams promote specific packages, 18-unit bundles and 90-unit clusters in a tiered approach with daily tracking and daily reviews. Regular pricing resumes post-August 21st, but these specific support policies last until August 31st.
It is incredibly granular.
It is. I am just fascinated by this meal allowance support detail being tied directly to computing power and staking. I mean, this is like a highly gamified corporate sales drive where even your lunch is directly tied to how many 90-unit clusters your team moved today.
It really is.
How does a micro incentive like that actually impact team consensus? Because it sounds exhausting.
Well, it might be exhausting, but by tying offline event rewards and daily operational costs like literal meals directly to mining machine performance, the company eliminates any daylight between corporate goals and daily survival.
Wow. So you can't ignore the quota if you want to eat at the seminar.
Exactly. This is how you force the mandate to jointly uphold market stability and maintain the long-term development consensus that the brief talks about. Abstract corporate goals don't drive consensus, necessity does.
So what does this all mean? When we look at this single August 17th document, it really serves as a complete blueprint for rapid execution.
It really does cover everything.
Yeah, I mean, you set a high-pressure deadline of August 21st. You build a massive ecosystem with over 700 partners so the product has immediate value. You standardize human behavior globally with morning meetings and V1 training. And finally, you tie granular daily survival incentives to specific sales bundles, like the 18-unit and 90-unit clusters.
It's a closed loop of accountability and execution. And the document actually ends with a rallying cry that I think perfectly captures the tone. Day by day, with persistence, united in purpose, mission accomplished.
Very intense.
Very. And it leaves us with a really fascinating final thought to mull over. You know, in our hyper-digital, blockchain-driven world, we tend to think of scale purely in terms of technology. We think about servers, public chains, AI launchpads.
Right, the code.
Exactly. But looking at this brief, does true global market domination ultimately rely less on the underlying code and more on hyper-regimented, heavily incentivized human behavior like morning meetings and daily performance tracking?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Because the tech is useless without the army of people on the ground perfectly executing the playbook.
Precisely.
Well, that is definitely something to think about the next time you look at the infrastructure of a massive tech rollout. Thank you for joining us on this exploration into the source material. Remember to keep questioning the blueprints behind the businesses you interact with every single day, and we'll catch you next time.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.